So welcome everyone. My name is Brenda Lacey and I am the conference superintendent for the State College District Supervisory Area. And you are here because you have been invited to be a part of this transitional training because you are receiving a new appointment or you're going to have a new status in the local church beginning July 1st, 2024. Or maybe for some of you that has started just a little bit earlier than July 1st, 2024. But our goal this evening is to equip you as the pastor to start well and to leave well. And just kind of getting used to this change of appointment and that will all involve. I do want to do some welcome here tonight. Welcome to all our SPRC chairs who are with us tonight. I know there's excitement for you as you are receiving a new pastor, and it's great that you're here to hear our presentation so that you can work alongside the incoming pastor. We also have Reverend Jolene Willis with us this evening. Jolene is the Altoona District Superintendent for the Altoona Supervisory Area, and she's going to be presenting the Leaving Well portion of our time together this evening. We also have with us Reverend Lillian Smith. Lillian is the incoming Altoona District Superintendent for that supervisory area beginning on July 1st. Also joining us sometime this evening will be Jason Mackey, who is our Pension and Health Benefits Officer. And there's a few things he will go over with you too this evening, and you can ask some questions if need be. For my part, I will be sharing with you about starting well at your new appointment. But before we do that, I do want to share a time of devotion and prayer with you. And just be patient with me as I bring up my screen here to share with you. We've already done our introduction part. And let me see if I can get this full screen. Alrighty, there we go. Okay. So we're going to have a time of devotion and prayer. And the scripture I'm going to share with you comes from 1 Corinthians chapter 3, verses 4 through 11. These are words that Paul wrote to the folks at Corinth as he is helping them grow. And if you know the story well, you know there was some dissension about who people were really following. So let's hear these words written by Paul. Some of you say you follow me, and others claim to follow Apollos. Isn't this how ordinary people behave? Apollos and I are merely servants who helped you to have faith. It was the Lord who made it all happen. I planted the seeds, Apollos watered them, but God made them sprout and grow. What matters isn't those who planted or watered, but God who made the plants grow. The one who plants is just as important as the one who waters, and each one will be paid for what they do. Apollos and I work together for God, and you are God's garden and God's building. God treated me with undeserved grace and let me become an expert builder. I laid a foundation on which others have built, but we must each be careful how we build, because Christ is the only foundation. So here ends the reading of God's word. Sometimes when a pastor receives a new appointment, they may go into the appointment working from scratch to lead the congregation in a vision concerning their call to ministry and to mission. Other times when a pastor receives a new appointment, they may go into the appointment and their predecessor has done a respectable job and the congregation knows their purpose and goals for the future. The new pastor can build upon what the church is doing and continue to move them forward. This happened to me in my third appointment. I followed the pastor who had just been there 5 years. He was getting ready to retire, but he came to the church at a very crucial time in their life where they were losing members. Financially, they were not doing well at all. And in 5 years' time, he had them doing very well. They were growing like crazy, and their finances were a lot better. So I was walking into a wonderful situation where the groundwork, the foundation had already been laid, and they were ready to continue to move forward. It was an exciting time for me. I also questioned, wow, what else can I do here? I just need to keep strong and keep moving them forward. But one thing I made very clear to the congregation was that I was there to build upon what already was done. I was not there to tear anything down by following this new pastor. That would not have been beneficial to anyone had I gone in with that attitude. And when you do go into a new appointment and things are going well, you sometimes think, oh, what can I do different? Or maybe I have a better idea about this, or I need to change this up or change that up. And maybe you don't need to at all. You just need to put it to prayer and have a time of discernment so that you know where God is truly leading you to lead God's people. We always need to remember the purpose of our work together. We all are to be working together to promote God's purposes so that others will know the story of Jesus and how his love for us conquered sin and death. And through grace, we have been given the opportunity to have eternal life. We have all been trusted with the same revelation to love our neighbors as ourselves. Actually, Jesus commanded that of us. We also need to remember that there are no superstars in God's service. We are all called to servanthood using our gifts and our talents and our abilities. And as servants, we all have a unified purpose. We serve the same Lord and we labor for the same Lord. We are partners in building up the kingdom. I think Paul is very clear about all of this when he writes, I planted the seeds, Apollos watered them, but God made them sprout and grow. What matters isn't those who planted or watered, but God who made the plants grow. The one who plants is just as important as the one who waters. Paul, in a sense, compares himself and Apollos to field hands. Paul was planting the seeds of the gospel, and Apollos came along and he began to water it. But God is the one who caused the crop of their faith to grow. Neither field worker owns the field, of course, but their master sends them out because both jobs need doing. The two are not in competition with each other. They work together. And Paul is also quick to comment on building in verse 10. He writes, God treated me with undeserved grace and let me become an expert builder. I laid a foundation on which others have built, but we must each be careful how we build because Christ is the only foundation. Paul here pictures himself as a skilled master builder who laid a foundation in Corinth when he introduced them to faith in Christ. Now, new builders have come to add to the work Paul started. Those builders must build carefully. And Paul warns so that they will remember that Christ is the foundation for the building, not Paul, not Apollos, or others who have come to build upon it. Christ is that sure foundation. And I think Paul's referring to every Christian who builds into the life of the church by serving. It is the quality of their work and the materials that they use that matters, but also that they're doing everything in the name of Jesus. So as you're entering this new appointment, get time to know your people. Talk to the outgoing pastor. Hear about the possibilities, the mission opportunities, whatever might already have been started and how it may grow. And then entrust this all to God's care because God knows where he needs the people in your congregations and in their context. God knows where God needs them to go. So together, Let us build with God's blessing the kingdom of God. Let us pray. Holy and loving God, we just give you thanks that you have called us. You have called us to serve you. You have called us to share your good news with so many people. You have called us to be the shepherds of your congregations. You have called us to be the visionaries to help the congregations see beyond their walls and to really see the people around them. Lord, we know we have so many churches that have wonderful missions and wonderful ministry in their communities. And as pastors, we need to build upon the foundation that has already been laid and trust that you will continue to help that growth happen. So, Lord, bless each pastor who is on here tonight. Bless each church that is represented as they continue to grow your kingdom for you. In Jesus' name we pray and ask. Amen. So next we're going to talk about a little bit about starting well. And hopefully there is excitement and joy about this new beginning in your life as the pastoral leader of a new church or of a new charge. Maybe you are also experiencing some anxiety or hesitancy or the feeling of being overwhelmed in anticipation. This is completely normal. Let me share with you on behalf of the bishops and cabinet, whether you are a full elder, a local pastor, or a COMDS hired to be assigned, be assured that much prayer and listening and discerning went into your change of appointment or new appointment or assignment. The bishops and cabinet have faith in you and believe you are the right person. Your gifts and graces will be a blessing to the congregation. Our desire is for you to have the best right start possible. So I'm going to share with you some helpful steps for your new beginning. So Lovett Weems uses an analogy when talking about a pastoral transition. As a new pastor leader, you are walking in, and in the very beginning, you are the guest. The congregation has the role as the host. Think of it as being a guest in someone's home. When you walk in to their house and you look around, you don't start making suggestions about how the furniture should be arranged or what color of paint should be on the walls or that the fabric for the curtains is wrong. You don't make any of those suggestions right away because you are the guest in the host home. It's not any different in the church. Being a new pastor leader, try to resist the urge to change, move, rearrange things right away. In the beginning, you are not the host, you are the guest. You need to show respect and appreciation for who the congregation has been and the way they comfortably do things. Even if they have those sacred cows that they want to hold on to, learn what those sacred cows are. Learn why they're holding on to them so tightly and why they are so meaningful to them. Just get to know their history. You do not have the critical mass information at the beginning to make changes right away. That time will come later. So resist and do not change the bulletin, the newsletter, the website, the order of worship, or the style of worship right away. And do not, and we've had pastors do this, do not move the pulpit, baptismal founts, pianos, or pews in the sanctuary. Michael Watkins wrote, "The actions you take during your first 3 months will largely determine whether you will succeed or fail. Transitions are periods of opportunity, but there are also periods of acute vulnerability." And Ken Callahan wrote, "Your first 3 days shape the first 3 weeks. The first 3 weeks shape the first 3 months. How you as a pastor use that time together with your congregation shapes the first 3 years. How you begin shapes how you continue and where you will end. So I'm going to share with you some best practices here. And I share with you what was written by Michael Watkins and Ken Callahan with you to emphasize that the critical first step in a new appointment is to build relationships with the people in your congregation. You have one chance to make a first good impression, and where you focus your time and energy in the early days will be an indication to the congregation what is important to you. Use this time in the beginning wisely to make connections. Adopt a learning mindset. Become a student. Seek advice and counsel. Ask questions. Listen actively and respond appropriately. Leading with credibility must be earned. So let me share with you some suggestions that I hope will help you to start well. If possible, with permission, after a conversation and a meeting with the outgoing pastor, which is supposed to happen before the appointment, try to make connections with the leaders of the congregation and recommended members suggested by the pastor. Introduce yourself to the staff. Ask questions to show you are interested in how they serve the church. Ask them about their families, their interests, their hobbies. Reach out to the administrative assistant of the church to discuss items like what day of the week is material for the bulletin or the newsletter or the website due. Is there a list of the homebound? Is there a password for internet access? Where are the files and the programs from over the years? What groups use the church and when do they meet at the church? Meet with a tech person. If there is a tech person, ask them when is the items due to them. Do they handle the PowerPoint from the scripture passages you give to them? Do they pick out the hymns? You need to make that connection with the tech person so you're both on the same page. Meet with a music or choir director. What is the choir schedule? Do they sing all throughout the year? Do they take the summer off? Does the choir process at the beginning of the worship service? Do they sing for special services? Do they have time of having a cantata either at Easter or at Christmas? These are some things you need to find out through the music and choir director. Meet with the worship leader or the worship team. What does a typical Sunday look like at the church? What are the responsibility of the ushers? Are there greeters? Are there hosts? The acolytes, when do they go up to light the candles? Is there a nursery? And how do people know that there's a nursery in the church? How does a typical Sunday morning look? Meet with the lay leader so that both of you can understand what the lay leader's understanding of their role is in the church. Do they usually open up the service? Do they close the service? Do they read the scripture? Do they read the announcements? Do they read the call to worship? What do they do in the life of the church? And what is important for them to do as the lay leader of the church? Meet with the chairs of the SPRC and trustees to discuss any concerns there may be about the parsonage or other items of importance, like the expectation of the pastor to be involved in community events, ministry activities, administrative duties, like is it the pastor's responsibility, which it is, to make sure that this work is done, but is it the pastor's responsibility to fill out the information for the annual church statistics, the vital signs, charge conference reports? There really should be lay people doing that. Pastors should be responsible for seeing that that work is done. But you don't want to get to the end of January and say, oh, I wonder who's to do our annual church statistics when they are due January 31st. There's a lot of information to gather in a short period of time if you wait that long. You might also ask, does the church provide a cell phone for the pastor to use for the church? Or do you use your own personal cell phone? Do they provide a discretionary fund? And what is the accountability for that discretionary fund? Meet with the leadership team, the Ad Council, and gain some knowledge about current and future plans. Call some key people in the church, those key leaders, those matriarchs, those patriarchs, those whose name surfaces often when others talk about the church. Call to introduce yourself as a new pastor and express you're looking forward to working with them to bring glory to God. And resist getting caught up in conversation about the negativity that might be in the church if you're walking into that situation. Keep your conversations positive and forward thinking. Let them know you are just looking forward to working with them as the pastor, as the leader. Connect with a member or a leader of the church who will take some time to introduce you to the community, help you to know the businesses in town, get to know the school principal if you have children, the mayor, the town council members, the Kiwanis, the Rotary Club, the Ministerium. They could even help you get introduced to the homebound congregational members, or if they're in a nursing home. Get to know more about the community and the local traditions and their history. If the church has a church directory, especially a pictorial directory, ask for a copy when you're at the church. This is extremely important because they do help you get to know the congregation. At least you can start putting some faces with the names of the people that you may be connecting with. My first appointment, I did get a hold of a picture directory so that I could get to know the people's names and the faces, the families, who went with who, and so forth and so on. And it was really neat because in my first Sunday when I served Holy Communion, I was able, granted, it was a small church, but granted, I was able to call everybody by their first name when they received Holy Communion. That spoke volumes to them about how I was going to care for them, how I was going to love them, and that I really wanted to be involved in the relationship with them. And also at this particular church, I had a young lady who came maybe probably about the third Sunday I was there, and she was new to the community. She had a camp that she came back to every once in a while, but she had retired, and that was going to be where she was going to live. And when she entered the church doors on a Sunday morning, I introduced myself to her, asked her her name, and introduced her to a few people in the church, and started, building that relationship with her. She came back the next Sunday, and when I called her by name when she walked in the door, she was amazed. She could not believe I took the time to remember her name and to acknowledge her when she walked in the door. That is so important to people, to know that they are really being cared for, that they are important, and that they are loved. Now, I know moving into a new parsonage is time-consuming and exhausting, but try not to spend all of your first days moving and setting up house. And if you're like me, I can't stand it when there's boxes sitting around. I like everything in place, but that's not where you want to put all your time. You want to spend some time getting to know the people of the congregation and of the community. So here's a key to success. And it's to start before you are ready. Be ready to work on July 1st. Let the people know that you have arrived. Try not to lose valuable time and share with them your call and the clarity of your gifts that you bring as a pastoral leader to the congregation. Here are some things to plan before July 1st. Make an outline of sermons for the first few weeks or months so that you have that work, that preliminary work, ready to go. Meet with the outgoing pastor, and the predecessor should go over important files with you. Talk about some future plans that the church has. Talk about the membership. Talk about if there's any upcoming weddings. Are there upcoming memorial services? Are there upcoming events that are going to be taking place soon? You can also contact the SBRC chair for questions to you and from you. Have a conversation with your family about the itinerant system if they're not real familiar with this system. As you know, our pastors are indeed appointed year to year, and most of them have agreed to be itinerant and to move when they are asked. But we also need to remind the churches that it is the pastor who is being employed by the church. It is not the family. They can join in and do things when they want to, when they're ready to, and if they want to. Have a conversation with your family about the use of social media and contact with the former church. There is no restriction for the spouse and family on social media, but explain the importance of being careful about what is shared. As you know, in the world we live in, you can share something on Facebook, and you may think it's completely innocent, that it won't offend anyone, but I guarantee you there will be somebody who will read something into what you have written or what you have liked or what you have shared. So if you have, a weird sense of humor, and there's a lot of people out there who don't get your weird sense of humor, you might want to have your own private Facebook page for those who get you, your family or whatnot, so that people don't misinterpret what you're trying to say or what you may be doing or what you might be liking or sharing. So be very careful about your Facebook pages. Always take time to clean them up if you need to as well. Be clear with the church about your family expectations as a clergy family and their involvement in the church. Be transparent with the congregation as well. Be very clear with them about your Sabbath day off, and your family time. And if you have children and they're getting involved in school activities or in sports, be clear with the congregation that if there's a sporting event that's very important to your child and you want to be there, you are able to be there as much as they are there to support their own children. And if there happens to be an ad council meeting on the night that their senior is being honored at a softball game, you should be able to go to that. That is an important milestone in that child's life, and the pastor and family should be there to be supportive. Begin to care for your family changes before July 1st, looking at schools, at doctors, at banks, at hospitals, at dentists. Ask the folks from the church that you're in communication with. They will give you wonderful recommendations. If they've lived there all their life, they're going to tell you who to go to. Do not talk negatively or make references about your previous appointment. Be positive and encouraging in your current appointment. Even if things went really well at your previous appointment, don't bring that up all the time. Do not do a comparison because that congregation that you're serving now wonders, where do you really want to be? Are you with us, or are you still lamenting that you're not at your former appointment? Discuss with a new district superintendent, if you're getting a new district superintendent, the change of mentors. If you have a mentor and that needs to change, or you need a mentor, make sure you bring that up to your district superintendent. You should have received a transition packet either as the ongoing or incoming or outgoing pastor. Maybe some of you received two, but make sure you go through that packet, fill out the necessary forms that are included in it, especially your I-9 form. That is important for you to fill out and get to the treasurer of your new church. So as you begin your new appointment, or even before, love the people. Pray for the people before you arrive. Watch out for those who may show up first from the congregation. Sometimes people have their own agendas, but others are being very hospitable if they show up just as you're moving in or shortly after you move in. I like to share the story of my second appointment. We were moving in on a Friday and Saturday. And of course, I already had the bulletins done for Sunday morning worship, which happened to be the 4th of July. At 10 o'clock at night, a knock comes on my door at the parsonage, and a gentleman is standing there. And he introduces himself to me as a member of the church, chair of the ad council, listing all his credentials to me. And he says, you need to come over and change the bulletin for tomorrow morning. And I said, why is that, sir? He said, because you need some more patriotic songs for us to sing. And I already had several in the bulletin as it was. He said, I'll tell you what, if you come over right now and you retype the bulletin and you run it off, I'll be happy to fold the bulletins for you. Sir, that's not going to happen. And that individual continued to have an agenda while I was there. The family was well known, and the people were always trusting this family to know what is best. And sometimes you do have those folks that you just got to watch out for. They need some extra grace from time to time. But really, there are some people who will come up and meet you, and they just want to show hospitality, and they want to show you that they're happy you're here, and they just want to love you as you are loving them. Never criticize the former pastor, even if it seems to be justified. Never speak in a way that your words may be interpreted as an affirmation to a member who did not care for the former pastor or had issues with them. Let people know it is okay to grieve the loss of their former pastor, and do not be threatened by their positive comments about the former pastor. It was somebody they loved, someone they shared a lot with. So they are going to still be grieving their pastor. We have all had a hand in building the kingdom with our gifts and graces, and some pastors are just fondly remembered for that. And it's okay for you and your family to grieve your former congregation. Acknowledge losses with understanding and be attentive to your own emotional health and well-being. Honor the progress and achievements of the church and the former pastor. Continue to lift up the good things that they are doing in their community. One thing you don't want to do is never ask right off when you're going to get paid. You do need to provide the I-9 form to the treasurer, which gives you an opportunity to find out when you are to expect your pay. But don't make that a priority for yourself, because then that says to them, you're just worried about being paid instead of building relationships with us. Take time to read, explore the church files, previous year's minutes of council meetings, trustees, and other groups. Get familiar with what they are doing, their mission, their outreach, any upcoming events. And if they have a history or an archive room, take time to visit that. You will learn so much about the church, where they have come from, what they've been doing, and how they have progressed throughout the years. It's a wonderful opportunity for you. And then as you prepare getting to know the new congregation, that what you have learned in the months leading up to your being there, beginning July 1st, learn what is going to shape your priorities, and ask yourself, which of my gifts are most needed right now for this congregation? What gifts do I need to develop to help this congregation grow, or this charge grow? And of course, you need to talk that over with your DS. There might be some resources out there for you. And then how can I apply my gifts to the church's context? I do want to share too, as you're starting well in your new appointment, you will be a part of a cluster of pastors in your area. And it's very important for you to connect with this cluster. They are there to support you. They are there to pray for you. They are there for collegiality. So make sure you're not a lone ranger. Make sure you are involved in attending your cluster meetings. Your district, the administrative assistant, the conference superintendent, mentor, and assisting elders are willing to guide and assist you. There's also some important things that will come out from the district office that will need your attention. You are responsible and accountable for all forms and reports to be turned in at the proper times. And you can access these reports by getting on the conference website. Usually all the reports, paperwork is all there, so it's easy to access. Some of it is a fillable form, which makes it even easier. But you do need to make sure that you are aware of the due dates and the time of the year to complete them. And these deadlines are crucial because the AAs also have to make sure that their deadlines are met. So the material you are sending into them as a pastor in the church is also, once it's sent to them, then they also have the responsibility of making sure that that information gets into the conference office. And then there's some of those items that the conference office needs to get to the general church. So deadlines are important. And so if your AA is on you about that, please make sure that you are respectful of their request and their time. If you go to the conference website, there are ministries there for you to look at. There's resources, there are webinars, there are videos. Portico is something new. There's a lot of webinars on there that you can use to help your church. It might be about the simplified accountable structure. It may be your role as an SPRC. It might be if your church is a lighthouse church, what does that mean? There's a lot of opportunities on Portico. And then also, again, plenty of clergy resources on our website to help you. And always make sure you check your SUS UMC email. That is where all the information will come from the conference and from the district. You can have another email, but make sure you set it up that everything gets forwarded to your SUS UMC email. So at this time, do you have any questions for me about starting well? Something that might need a little bit more explanation or not? Let me stop sharing my screen here. Okay. I guess, Jolene, are there any questions in the chat? I see there's like 16 chats.
There's only one question.
Okay.
And at one point you said that there was someone that folks should be sure to call before the first Sunday. Do you remember who that was?
Not before the first Sunday, but when they have that initial meeting with the outgoing pastor, there's going to be some key leaders that pastor is going to share. So you want to call them. You want to be in touch with the SPRC chair, the trustees chair, other key people in the church, maybe your missions coordinator, especially if there's an event coming up real soon. So, just checking out who the officers are and getting to know them. You can even just call some people. If you have a pictorial directory, you can take time to call people and say, hey, I just want to introduce myself. I'm going to be the new pastor July 1st. I don't know if that answers the question, if that's what they were looking for. If you haven't received your transition packet, talk to your new district superintendent. They should be giving you a new transition packet as the new pastor coming into their district. Okay. Any other questions there?
Brenda, this is Nancy Hale. I have a question.
Sure.
If the outgoing pastor was using forms of technology that I am completely unfamiliar with, how do I navigate that with that congregation? And I'd rather use the technology I'm familiar with, which is PowerPoint.
Mm-hmm.
They were using something that's completely different, and I don't want to go through that learning curve when PowerPoint would work just fine.
Yeah.
So how do I navigate that?
I would, Nancy, this would be an instance where I would take time to really talk to the tech person, share your concerns with them, and also, see what they're willing to do to help you out. What do you need to get to them if they're so used to their system? What do you need to get to them early so it can be implemented correctly? Without really knowing how they do it, I probably can't answer your question fully, but I would definitely be spending some time with a tech person.
In this case, the tech person is the pastor. There's nobody else.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I will be responsible for everything.
So in that instance, then I would be talking with your SPRC chair, share your concerns, see what their response is. They may just say, you do whatever you're comfortable with.
Okay.
Since it's the pastor. That's what I would do. Just so that somebody's aware that you were talking, that you didn't come right in and change things right away. Of course, but this is something, and when it has to do with worship and you are the pastor, that you might have to change up a little bit.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I saw another question pop up there.
Yeah, I'm emailing or texting.
Oh, okay. All right. So I don't need to address that one by Marion?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. All right, any other questions? All right, at this time, I'm going to make sure that Jolene is the host, and she's going to share. Oh,
Do you want to
do
let Jason go since he's
Oh,
on?
is Jason on?
Yes, I see that he is
Okay,
here.
Jason, would you like to go now?
I would be glad to go now.
All right.
Absolutely.
I am not a night person. I don't think you are either, so.
I'm not.
No, 4:10, man. That's my time of day.
All right, I'm going to make you a co-host, Jason.
Okie doke.
All right, there you go. You should be able to share now.
Cool. So here we are. Good evening, everybody. My name is Jason Mackey. I am currently, for the next couple of months, the conference benefits administrator, which means I care for health insurance, workers' compensation, and retirement benefits for all of our clergy across the conference. And I say the next couple of months because I'm going back to the local church. July 1, I'm headed to Camp Hill, and my replacement is down at the bottom of this here screen, Chris Sims. Chris Sims is currently our Seedling Financial Executive Director. And as many of you probably know, Seedling is winding down to the end of the year. And she will be assuming my duties starting July 1, and then that'll be her only job starting January 1. So what I'm sharing, Chris will be sharing next year. But in my wing of the finance department, like I said, we care for health insurance, retirement, and workers' comp. And there's a lot of confusion. Some of you maybe have never been on this website before. This is our susumc.org website. Please make sure that you've visited this, you make yourself familiar. And this finance and administration tab is absolutely fabulous. I want to encourage you to check it out and come out to this site. Sorry, got distracted by the chats there. And in this tab is one of my key places, health and pension benefits. And if you hop into there, for all of you full-time clergy who are on the call this evening, we've talked about health insurance before, and this is the site where we post it all. I try to post the cost of benefits for next year and the plan options somewhere around July, as soon as they become available to the public after annual conference. And you'll see that they're listed here. Each plan year is listed. And under the plan year, you've got a lot of resources. A plan comparison guide talks about all 6 plans that we offer and the highlights of each plan. The clergy rates, so you know what's it actually going to cost you if you're going to cover your spouse or your family. How much are you really looking at? And then, of course, there's also a tool, Alex, the benefits counselor. And Alex is kind of an AI program that will ask you questions about claims that you've had, medical expenses, prescriptions that you might be on. And Alex will help to recommend a health insurance plan that's going to be best for you. I know a lot of people have never looked at these, but definitely every year, annual enrollment comes around November 1st to about the 15th. And that's your time to pick your health insurance for the following year. And so even if this isn't your first appointment, even if you already have health insurance, please take a look at this site. This is a good transition time where you can just take stock of your finances and what's really going on. Make yourself familiar with what's up since you're in the time of upheaval, and take this opportunity as best you can. Now, as I get all this information together, what we do try to do is send your local church some information about you. We take in information from your appointment letter, your compensation. We take all of your health insurance elections, What health insurance plan did you choose? Your dental, your vision. And we also take your retirement elections and we mail that letter out to your local church in the form of a pastoral compensation letter. And it tells your treasurer and your payroll person, here's how much you should be earning, and here's how much should be deducted from your pay each month. And hopefully those numbers jive with what you've elected. So it is important. I know I heard Brenda a moment ago to say, be careful about asking when payday is, but it is also important to have those financial conversations to, be clear up front and make sure that there's nothing forgotten. As you're filling out those I-9s and turning in those tax documents, it doesn't hurt to ask the questions and help make yourself familiar. Hey, what elections did the conference give you for me? I just want to make sure that they're right. And that's a good way to start to ease into that conversation. So you've got the health insurance section here on the conference website. And then down below a little bit is our retirement plan. Again, for those of you, any clergy person serving half-time or more is included in our conference retirement plan, our CRSP, Clergy Retirement Security Program. This plan is only going to continue for one more year. General Conference just the other week passed a whole new retirement plan that's going to take effect January 1, 2026. But again, in this time of upheaval in your appointment life and your financial life, this is a great time to look at your own retirement. If you've never logged into it, bring up your Westpath page. You can go to westpath.org, and up here in the top right-hand corner is the login, and there's also the benefits access button. Check out, what's going on with Westpath, what's going on with your retirement benefits, and, how much do you have saved up? Is it matching up with what's been withheld from your pay? Too many times I've had clergy tell me that, $4,000 was withheld from their pay last year, but only $500 was contributed into their retirement account. So make sure you're getting those contributions. Make sure your retirement benefits are earning the earnings that they should be earning. So check out your Westpath page. It will not only have your retirement, but it's also going to have your health insurance elections. I strongly encourage you to check out those two sites. Again, getting back to how much do you put into your retirement? We're going to go over the retirement formulas in a little bit, but if you can bump up your retirement giving, I want to encourage you to do that. Most of our clergy across the conference are pretty good about giving at least 3% to their retirement. Our long-term goal, as we look at the new plan coming in 26, we want people to go even higher, even stronger, and to be more prepared. I recently heard a statistic that only 40% of our clergy are on track to be prepared for their retirement. Only 40% will be financially prepared. And I would love to make that number 100, but most importantly, I want to make you on the right side of that number. So, take a look, see, is there any additional that you can put into your retirement? I want to pause there for a moment and just see, were there quick questions about health insurance or retirement benefits? Now, I did mention with regard to retirement, it's only persons serving half-time and more. Unfortunately, for those who are CLMs, DS hires, or serving less than half-time, you do not qualify for our clergy retirement program. You may make contributions on your own. We can gladly set you up with an account. It is a qualified retirement account, but the church does not make a contribution on your behalf. It's not part of the structured plan. So, well, then kind of moving along the different things that I do. One of the other key pieces that we talk about is workers' compensation. And a lot of our clergy don't realize that, we're small church people here in central Pennsylvania in the Susquehanna Conference. We tend not to have big church staffs. We don't get involved in big workers' compensation claims. But the reality is every single person at your church on your church payroll is covered under workers' compensation. And workers' compensation does not only pay for the time that you miss work, but it also pays for the medical bills associated with your injury. So if you or anyone working in a paid capacity, not volunteers, but any paid staff are injured working for the church on the premises, you now have a workers' compensation claim on your hands. And so you as the pastor really need to know how to file this claim, how to go about doing this. And again, if you go to our finance administration page, down to the safety team, it's going to take you to this lovely website with all of the safety details. And you can scroll down here, and down at the bottom, we've got some really helpful different boxes, one for early childhood, one to lead a safety team at your church, and another one here for reporting workplace injuries. When it comes time that you have a claim, you click on this box and you get your claim form. This claim form gives us all the details that we need in order to file a workers' compensation claims. And it's going to ask stuff on here about the date of birth, the social security number, the full name of the person injured. I need all of that information. That information is required to pay medical bills. So please, when you complete one of these forms, fill out all the information that you have, talk to the payroll and the HR people, and get that info for us. And then as you fill out the form, there might be some questions you can't answer. That's okay. You can leave them blank. And then at the bottom is the directions to return it to the conference office by mail, or you can email it. And then what we'll do is we will turn it in to our workers' compensation administrator, and they'll evaluate the claim and they'll help move us forward with paying off that person's medical bills and paying for the claim. But hopefully, before you have a claim, as a new pastor, you might walk into the church with some new eyes. The first time I walked into Camp Hill, I noticed that the campus is close to 3 schools. We're across the street from a community park, and we have a nursery school, some dingy stairwells with bad lighting, a really old bathroom where the wallpaper's peeling off the wall. Like, those are the things I see today, but I won't see 6 months from now, right? Because it'll be old hat to me at this point. One of the great opportunities you have as the pastor coming in is the opportunity to see your facility, to see your spaces with new eyes. And so an early exercise that you might want to do with your trustees is to go through some of these safety resources, these safety forms, and do a safety inspection, right? Maybe that's an early thing that the trustees can show you around the building. Hey, can you show me where do we store the stuff for the Christmas decorations? Are they up a rickety old wooden ladder that's missing 2 rungs? Where are the stairwells and how well lit are they? I can think back very quickly of 2 claims. One was a workers' comp claim. In the middle of the winter, we had an ice storm. The janitor was out spreading salt in the parking lot, and she slipped and fell, fractured her kneecap, and we had a $160,000 claim on our hands. We had to pay for her knee surgery and long recovery. We had another one where a pastor was busy in the summertime activities of VBS, had a whole bunch of boxes in her hands stacked up over her eyes, and she was walking down the stairs, missed a stair, and went tumbling. Another leg surgery, another $60,000 bill for the conference. Now, on one hand, these are definitely financial claims that easily could have been prevented. On the other hand, these are real injuries that easily could have been prevented. Months of surgery and rehab that, had we just been mindful and only carried 1 box at a time, or maybe threw a little more salt and got some ice cleats on, all of those things can be prevented. Workers' comp, safety team, that's our goal. And as you walk in as the new pastor, it's a great opportunity to have that conversation. Let your church be proud. Let them boast about how safe they are and the things they've got in place. It lets them, share who they are with you. And one of the other things you can do is maybe bring them up to date, right? there's some Department of Labor postings that your church is required to post. And every single one of them is here on the website. You can download them for free. You don't have to buy the $100 packet that comes in the mail from the HR companies. They're all here for free. You can put up the physicians panel. This is a list of doctors and and medical providers that they can go to when they're injured, divided by county, and we guarantee that we will pay the claim if they go to one of these doctors on our list, right? So all of these things should be posted in the church, and it's a great opportunity early on for them to show you how they've become safe and been prepared. Want to see, I know we had another chat here. Okay, Michael, I will follow up with you separately. I see you were given a compensation plan with health insurance question. I will follow up with you after this meeting. Any questions briefly about workers' compensation and how that all might work? We're an exciting bunch tonight, aren't we? Okay, well then I'm going to go ahead and transition us to our next piece. And that is one of the early projects that you're going to have to take on that you will oversee as you come into the church. And on our conference website, if you go to the resources tab and you go to Charge Conference, you see these beloved forms that we will fill out here starting in the late summer, early fall, as we get ready for church conference for the year. And the two forms that I want to look at in particular, it's really one form, but there's two versions of it. I know that this call includes pastors who are credentialed, and I know it also includes CLMs, certified lay ministers. When it comes to pastoral compensation and CLM compensation, your numbers fit on Form 6, numero 6, right? Pastoral compensation Form 6, DS hire, and CLM compensation Form 6 right there in the middle. The CLMs, it's pretty easy. Your form is pretty straightforward. As with all of our forms, please, please, please take the time to put your name on it. You get 200 points for putting your name on it. In your local church, it makes sense that you can leave that blank because it's your church conference. Who else is the pastor? But when it's mixed in with 300 to 400 other forms, I don't know what pastor we're talking about. So if you would please take the time, be sure to put your name, your charge, your district, all of that obvious information matters to us on the conference level. And then we're looking for that contact information. Who was the SPRC chair who helped fill this out? We may need to reach out to them. And then we're looking for some info on you, the pastor, your name, your status, how long have you been there? And who's your supervising elder, right? Who's the person that's overseeing all of this? And then for the CLMs, it's kind of a truncated version of what we do with the pastoral compensation. It is your pay, and then it's your reimbursables, right? How much are we paying you in the form of cash? And then how much are we paying you when you give us receipts? Pretty straightforward. When it comes to the other clergy, their forms are a little more involved. And that's where I want to spend some time here this evening. So your Form 6. This form, similar to the CLMs, we're filling in our name, our SPRC chair. You're filling in your years of service, your conference relationship, right? You see this as a drop-down box. Even churches in the smallest, most rural parts of our conference can do this. If you're on this call, you can do this form online. Use the drop-downs. Are you an active or a retired clergy? Once you do that, then there's another box here, and it lets you choose. Are you an elder, deacon, associate, licensed local, or something else, right? All of those selections are important. And then you can put your years of service, and then you can find out what is the minimum base salary required. And if you download the instructions that are on that former website, you will see the recommendation from Equitable Compensation. What is our minimum base salary? Now, pastors, it's really important, church leaders, that we're in compliance with these numbers for two big reasons. First of all, there we go. There's some light. First of all, our clergy have worked hard. right? They deserve a certain minimum salary. Many of us have professional degrees that, we'll never earn back what we've spent on our degrees. But secondly, it's important to keep pace with the natural inflation and expenses of what it actually costs to maintain a clergy person, to maintain a staff person. I know lots of our local churches, they don't hire staff otherwise. In my job, I have 2 staff that I pay for at my office. I own an insurance agency, and I'm keeping up on, what is a competitive wage and how much do we have to pay for a cost of living increase. These minimum base salary requirements, they help ensure that those increases are structured in, and they help make sure that your church is keeping pace. Because nothing is worse than when you get a change of pastor and now the salary has fallen behind, and to get a pastor who can do what you do, they're going to have to pay $10,000 more than they paid you, right? Keep the salary with the pace, and it's going to be better, honestly, for your church financially to maintain that as you go through. So we hit that here in box number 6. And then in section C, we get to the negotiated base salary. This is where we say, okay, here's your salary for the year, pastor. And this is the recommendation from SPRC. The next box, C2, says Social Security offset. Now, as you may know, pastors are a bit of an IRS enigma. Although we are employed by the local church, we are considered to be self-employed persons for the purposes of taxes. So that means that we pay self-employment tax. Normal work employees, they pay their FICA and Medicare, and their employer pays FICA and Medicare taxes. But as pastors, we pay both of those on our own. We pay the 7.65 that a normal employee would pay, and we pay the 7.65% that a normal employer would pay. And so as the Susquehanna Conference, we've decided that we want to make our pastors whole for what the employer would otherwise pay, and that is the Social Security offset. So you get the base salary, you get another 7.65% of Social Security offset, and that is the total cash salary that you should receive, listed there in C3. Now, what about housing? Although not everybody lives in a parsonage, some people will receive a housing allowance, right? So this box gives you some kind of value for your parsonage as we start to calculate what's your retirement benefit. So if you're living in a parsonage, you're going to multiply this C3 number you just came up with by 25%. Now that value has nothing to do with your taxes. That number you're putting in there is not necessarily the amount of money that the church is giving you for the parsonage. This number serves as a placeholder when we calculate your retirement as to what is the value of your parsonage. The IRS said it needed a value, and they said that value is going to be 25%. Now, if you're not living in a parsonage, but rather you're getting a housing allowance, you're going to fill in the second section here, D2, and you're going to just write the amount of the housing allowance that you're going to receive. Now we're going to carry these over to the backside of the form. We're going to put your base salary, and then we're going to put your housing, whether it was the parsonage value or the housing allowance. And that's going to give you your total compensation, which is going to total up there in box 3. From there, we're going to do some magical percentage math. Our retirement plan says that we're going to give you 3% into your individual retirement account. So if you've got $100,000 there as a contribution base, we're going to give you $3,000 into your retirement account. Your local church is going to contribute that. And then they're also going to do a defined benefit. A defined benefit is what most people think of when they think of a pension. It's the amount of money they receive for years of service. And as a conference, we've said that our churches need to contribute $5,950 for every full-time appointment. If it's less than full-time, you multiply it by the appropriate percentage. But the point is, this money goes together and gets pooled with all the other monies so that we can provide that pension amount for all of our retired clergy as you retire. And then this form is totaled up here in E6, and this gives your church conference, this gives your church treasurer an idea as to how much should be set aside for your retirement in the budget. Questions about any of that?
So if you're quarter time, you would not really have to do any of that in those boxes.
You are 100% correct. If you're quarter time, this whole section E should be blank.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am. So now then we're going to bump down to the next section, section F, which is also on the CLM form. These are the reimbursables. And a lot of churches are a little confused on these. Sometimes they don't understand how a reimbursable works. Sometimes I'll get a call with a very pointed question. How much money does our pastor get to spend on books? I make a phone call every now and then to a pastor or to a DS to just let them know that a curious treasurer is asking questions. Not always a bad thing, but sometimes there might be a mission behind it. And this is where the numbers are kept. This serves as kind of a contract. The first thing you see on here is the account reimbursable plan. How much money is the church giving you just to spend on taking congregants to lunch or to coffee? Or maybe they give you money for different resources for the church, right? If you turn in a receipt, they're going to pay you for this. This is a reimbursable. Now, some of those reimbursables may be categorized otherwise, but sometimes clergy are given just $3,000 a year. You can spend it on whatever you want. And that's very helpful. That would go there in box 1. Now then, the other thing we need to think about is your travel. The IRS mileage rate is 67.5 cents a mile. I encourage you, we as the conference encourage you to use the IRS travel rate. It is the cleanest and simplest way to account for your mileage. Mileage counts whenever you are going to visit somebody in the hospital, at a home visit, or someplace other than your office, right? You cannot count mileage from your home to your office, and you cannot count mileage from your office to your home. But if you're going anywhere other than that, you can. So I've had some clergy who are on multiple point of charges, right? They've got three churches they preach on a Sunday morning. They drive to the first church, and that counts as their office drive. Then they drive to the second church and the third church, and they can count those 2 trips for mileage. And then they drive home from the third church, and that counts as their office drive home, right? However you want to work that out, that's what we're talking about. What is qualified mileage? You keep a nice chart of this, the date, the destination, the purpose of the trip, the starting and the ending mileage, how many miles you did. Turn it in once a month to your treasurer, and you get a reimbursement check. It's a fabulous and wonderful thing. It does help for the church to budget a certain amount of money on this. Used to be $3,000 was enough. I think that might be pushing it for some of our churches. They may need to be budgeting a little more with the increased IRS rates, but be mindful of that and try not to waste the mileage, but you can claim it certainly if you're using it. The next section you see here is continuing education. The Book of Discipline guarantees that all of our full-time clergy receive at least $750 from continuing ed, and our part-time clergy receive at least $500 for continuing ed. You could receive more than this, but not less. And this money can be carried over from one year to the next, right? It's your money till you spend it. And this money can be used for books. It can be used to register for classes. If you go to a conference, it can be used for hotel fees when you go to a conference. I know some people, some clergy, their churches gave $2,000 or $3,000 of continuing ed, and they used it to get a DMin, right? Maybe you want to do continued studies. That works. The Bishop's Day apart, that would fall under this. But your continuing ed expenses, again, it's got to be used for education. And you can see here, the amount carried over from previous years is listed in there as well. One important factor for those of you leaving an appointment right now, only spend half of this year's continuing ed, right? Your continuing ed is budgeted on a calendar year, but you're leaving halfway through the year. So if they gave you $750, please only spend $375. Leave the other $375 for your successor. Likewise, you'll be grateful when you show up and there's continuing ed left for you. So that's how the continuing ed works. And then other items that might be paid for by the charge. I think Brenda may have mentioned some churches pay for a cell phone. That would be listed in here. I know one church pays for the pastor's dental insurance. That was a big deal to them. That gets listed in here. And then finally, under the reimbursables, the additional pastoral compensation, vacation time. Our full-time clergy get at least 4 weeks vacation. Our part-time clergy get at least 2 weeks of vacation. And this is negotiable, right? You can negotiate with your SPRC for more vacation. Maybe in lieu of a pay raise this year, you want another week of vacation because you've got a cruise planned with your family. Or maybe you just want to get away for a little extra time, right? What vacation numbers do you want? Now, of course, we need to be within the minimum salary guidelines, but you can negotiate vacation and you can ask your congregation, your church leaders, for the amount of vacation that you need. Of course, you do also get spiritual renewal leave. And so you can take 2 weeks per year to go. I like to go to a monastery. I usually go for a couple days during 1 week out of the year. And that's just some time to renew, to refresh. It's just me apart from the church. I'm not answering emails. This is about my spiritual renewal. And so you get that every year. And then, of course, every quadrennium, you get additional time that you can take if you wanted to do a longer spiritual renewal leave as sort of a sabbatical, if you will. So that is out there, and that is something certainly that you would want to negotiate with your SPRC and plan accordingly. So I want to step back into the chat real quick and see if I've got questions about where we're at.
Hey, Jason, couple people who are new to full-time ministry and need to choose their health insurance plan. Will you reach out to them? Do they need to email you? What's the best way to handle that?
Yes. Please, if you have not seen an email from me, please reach out to me. That would be lovely. I know I have reached out to several that I'm following up on this evening, but definitely we want to get you signed up. I'm guessing that's Martin.
Yes, thank you very much.
Absolutely. Thank you.
And Jason, also, I should have corrected this earlier. The IRS rate is 67 instead of 67.5, but yeah.
I heard it's going up. No.
Probably is, yeah.
Just kidding, just kidding.
But just so everyone knows, yeah.
Thank you. The last section on this form here, section G, this one's rarely completed, but for those of you who are living in a parsonage and want to save money on your taxes, pay attention, right? So for clergy who live in a parsonage, the IRS says that you need to claim the higher of the actual amount spent to give you a parsonage or the fair rental value of said parsonage, right? So they say that you need to claim the higher of how much the church spent or how much the church should have spent on your parsonage. And so one of the things that your church can do to make your tax life a little bit easier is they can talk with a real estate professional and they can say, hey, we've got this beautiful 4-bedroom, 2-car garage, full AC, and there's a jacuzzi tub in the back. We need to know the fair rental value of the pastor's palace parsonage. And that gets filled in here right in G1 so that when you go to do your taxes, you know how much you need to claim as additional income for your parsonage. And then at the end of the year, when you're doing your taxes, you can also go back to the treasurer and you can ask them, how much did you actually spend for the parsonage? How much did you spend in taxes, in rent, in mortgage, in utilities, everything that went into the maintenance of that parsonage. And then you've got those two numbers and you can do your taxes accurately. Pastors, if you've never lived in a parsonage before and you've never filed taxes on a parsonage before, be prepared. You will have to pay taxes on a value for the parsonage. You may want to talk to a tax professional now. I encourage that. The second line that you see here is G2, and this is the parsonage exclusion. What's this all about? Well, sometimes when you live in a parsonage, there's money that you're going to spend that you're not going to recoup, right? Remember, this is the church's building. You're only living there temporarily. There will come a day you will move out, right? So if you pay something for that building, that is a sunk cost that you're not going to get back. And the IRS says you shouldn't have to pay tax on that money. And so if you pay the neighborhood kid to shovel your snow, if you pay for a lawn service to cut your grass, if you pay to repaint some of the bedrooms when you move in, you got permission from trustees, but you said, I'll buy the paint. Those are all expenses you can write off and you can exclude from your income. Now you have to decide how much money that is before you're actually paid it, but this is where it goes, is in the parsonage exclusion. Things that would be included here are all consumables, not food, but paper goods, cleaning products, light bulbs, anything that is invested in the building that's going to stay with it after you leave. That would be paint. That would be other improvements to the property, and anything that's needed for the maintenance of the building. So if you as the pastor pay for some kind of repairs that the church doesn't pay for, or if you're paying for that lawn or snow care removal, that's all an expense that can be excluded. And you want to include that in your estimate here on your Form 6. Nancy, you ask a really great question. Thank you. Since I was touching on taxes with the parsonage here, Nancy asked about our move. Yes, pastors, you will receive a 1099 from the conference for the cost of your move. Whatever the conference pays to move you, you will get a 1099 in January from Kathy Group, and it'll say how much they paid, and you will have to pay taxes on that. That is compensation. Now, on the plus side, we're also going to put an extra 3% in your retirement for the amount of the move, because that counts as compensation. Other questions? Another one popped in the chat. What happens if the amount on line G2 is greater than the amount you actually spend? That's a great question, Mark. So what happens if you've set a higher exclusion than the amount that you actually spend? You'll just claim that difference as regular income, right? So if you list a parsonage exclusion for $3,000 and you only have receipts for $2,500, then $500 goes back into regular taxable income, and you just don't pay taxes on $2,500. So it's not the end of the world. Great questions. Now, earlier, somebody had asked me, hey, is there a tax seminar? Is there someplace that I can learn more about this? And yes, definitely. One of the resources is on our conference website, on the health and pension page. This key video right here, this W-2 training, this is with Nancy Buonocore. Nancy is a tax professional out of the York area. She's also a clergy spouse, and she's going to give you some great tips. It's really written for church treasurers and how they're going to write your W-2, but pastors, to be educated about this and to know what goes into that, that's going to help you as well. And then the second place that you might go for some tax education is to the Stewardship Foundation. Barry Robison, usually every year, he has a training. He brings in a guest speaker who can tell you about clergy taxes, some of the special benefits, and some of the different things that you can look for there. So check out the Stewardship Foundation. and also check out this website. I think I've covered taxes, I've covered retirement, I've covered health insurance, we've covered your Form 6, we've covered your workers' compensation. Those are the really fun things that I do. Are there any other general questions for me? Guess not, Brenda.
All right, thank you, Jason. Really appreciate all that information, helpful information for you folks to be aware of, especially if you're new or going from part-time to full-time. Good information. Thank you for that. All righty, Jolene, are you ready to do your part? And let me make you co-host here.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, it will let me.
Thank you, Jason, for all that really good information.
All righty, you're ready to go.
I'm ready to go. Well, I have the opportunity to share about saying goodbye. As we talk about saying goodbye, it is a one of the things that is really helpful is for us to recognize that there is grief involved. I have here listed there are 3 types of grief: the personal grief, the family grief, the congregational grief. Personal grief, you know, it's just hard saying goodbye. Goodbyes have never been easy for me. I remember as a child watching family that lived in Ohio and having to wave as they went by. Not fun. But to acknowledge that grief gives opportunity to grieve and to process the grief. And so it's just really important to know that, and that it's not a one and done. You know, you will go in and out of that. One person even once said that it's easier to get angry than to grieve. And so, you know, recognize what emotions you're feeling and put a finger on why you're feeling those emotions, and do give yourself time to process that grief. I'm really grateful that Jason mentions with his training, the counseling that we have available through our employee assistance program, the EAP. And, you know, that's even an opportunity that you or your family members, if you have the insurance through the conference, can take some time to talk through that with folks. But, you know, for you to recognize that and to process that, you need to take care of yourself, because you are also leading your family through that. You are also leading your congregation through that. And I forgot to ask last time, earlier, I asked how many SBRC chairs we have, because I think it's important for them to know this as well. If you are moving a spouse, moving children, you as the pastor will be caring for them and their grief as well. If they're getting settled in and making new friends, new schools, things like that. But then also, with the congregational piece, you have 2 congregations who are grieving: the congregation that you are moving from, the congregation that you are going to. And so with all this grief, pastor, you are at the center of it. So please care for yourself, and please take the time to walk yourself through that in a healthy way, so that you can lead others through that in a healthy way. You know, part of the grief process is it is important to be able to say goodbye well in order to say hello well. So pastors, as you're leaving, some of us, many of us are introverts, and we don't like to be fussed over perhaps, but it's important for your congregations to be able to say goodbye in a good way. And that will prepare them more so to say hello to their next incoming pastor. So please give them the opportunity to do that. And know and recognize and help them in that way. And also then, as you're going into your next congregation, just be aware that there's going to be some grief there too. Take the high road with that, and any ways that you can be helpful in that, please be as well. There is an organization, I guess you say it, ARTOS, and I'm not sure if that's an acronym that stands for something, ARTOS. This group offers clergy spouse counseling. Specifically, so know that resources available. I believe you have to pay for that. That's something beyond our insurance. But they also had I received in the mail a jigsaw journey, and it was about saying goodbyes, and it's for clergy families. And I guess because we have kids, that just came from ARTOS in the mail to help us with our children who make transitions during this time as well. So if you did not get one of those, I have an extra one because my move is very minimal this year. My kids aren't going to be going through that, but I would gladly share that with you as well. There you go. Jason has more as well. Thank you, Jason. So going to our next slide here. It's gonna go. There we go. There are three things that are meant to be lifted up primarily with the Lewis Center, and that lifts up these 3A words: accomplishment, affirmation, anticipation. If you're going to do one thing, focus on these. You can even use these maybe perhaps in sermon and communication and so forth, but accomplishment. There are things that change and things that don't change when you are moving. And if you can lift up, look, see what God has done in our midst, in the congregation that you are leaving. See what God has done and celebrate that well. And again, it's not just about you, it's about God, right? It's about what God has done. And then the affirmation, even as you are leaving as their pastor and another pastor is incoming, you have that word of affirmation, that positive message that the people, this congregation, you continue to be God's people. God will continue to be in their midst and continue to encourage that in them, that, as they're grieving about your leaving, not everyone may be, but a lot of people may be. But as they grieve that, to affirm that they continue to be God's people, and they will continue the ministry that you have been doing together. Someone else will come alongside and pick that up in new ways. And that's the anticipation. Behold, God is making all things new. There is this sense of revisiting what Brenda opened with in our devotional passage. We build on somebody else's work, and we continue that work. And then as we move on, somebody else comes in and they continue to build on that work as well. And if we can continue to encourage folks with that, we will have served them well and prepared them well to continue the work that God is calling them to do. And just give honor where honor is due and glory where glory is due. Another piece of communication is to whom to say thank you. First of all, there are three ways that you can say thank you. You can make a personal visit, you can make a phone call, you can send a letter, and it might be a personal handwritten note, it could even be an email. There are different ways of communicating the thank you. As you are leaving, talking about saying goodbyes, leaving well, who do you need to thank? Who has been that key support person or persons for you as you have served this congregation? who has done extraordinary service with you. Perhaps there's been a capital campaign that you did together, and there was a key leader that led that campaign, and the two of you worked very closely together on that. You know, there might be a personal visit that needs made and a thank you said. For others, my mind goes back to a particular person who was a member of a congregation, was not a member, but attended the congregation for a while. He was Catholic and was raised Catholic. He had been attending the United Methodist Church for years, but never became a member. But he became a member while I was there, and such a strong support, strong financial support, strong financial leader, you know, that people like that just really stand out, and you have seen tremendous spiritual growth in them. You know, say thank you to them, and they need that encouragement to know that they will continue to have something to offer when the next pastor comes as well. They will be that gift to that pastor just as much as they were to you. That saying thank you to folks that are in the congregation. Another person or group of persons to consider whom you will say thank you to, people who are in the community, whether it's kind of social agency kinds of things or with the school, and even ecumenically, people that you have worked well with. And the same thing applies as far as that communication. You may communicate, again, personal visit, with a letter, with a phone call, maybe with an email. You know, I can think back, someone in particular, almost all of my work was by email with one particular person, but we worked closely together. This was someone in the community, actually, with the school system. You know, it was very appropriate to continue that by email. And you know, I would love to have a personal visit. I will tell you, one of my downfalls is I have a preference to sit down one-on-one and in person, but you can't do that with everyone. And sometimes, you know, I put off the phone call, I put off the email or the note because I want to sit down personally. And, you know, especially when you're preparing for a move and your time is limited, you have to look at the list and you have to make those choices. And so choose well with that, and choose how you can touch the most people in the most significant ways with the limited time that you will have. And let me say also, with the ecumenical, along with saying thank you to them, one of the things that I like to encourage people to do, as you know, we prepare people for relationships that are, you know, we are no longer your pastor, we say, as we leave. And part of that is when it comes to funerals, it is just a wonderful gesture to write the funeral directors of the funeral homes in which you have worked closely with. Say thank you for the opportunity to have been in ministry with them. Also then inform them that you're moving. The new pastor will take effect July 1. Say who that pastor is, what their contact information is, if it's the same or different, and even share a little bit of what our United Methodist policy is. Now that I'm moving to a new congregation and have that congregation to care for, I will no longer be coming back to do services. So this is the person that you will contact. And that just, again, anything that you can do on the front end that makes and communicates that will make it easier in the long run. Also, when you have the opportunity, if you have your successor coming and spend a day with you, if there are any key people that would be helpful for that person to meet, to personally meet, you can take that person and say that personal thank you visit, as well as I would like for you to meet the new pastor and hope that you can continue this working relationship, et cetera, et cetera. So those thank yous, those times of communications are very important. Some other helpful information. Some of this we have talked about. This kind of stuff is included even in the transitional packet, but want to just briefly go over it. Make sure the person following you gets a list of the ill, dying, even the recently grieving, so that the incoming pastor can follow up with those things. There may be words. I know one of the places I pastored, the pastor before me told me what of a sacred cow in that church, and I in turn, when I left, told the next person this is a sacred cow, because it still was, you know. Just you know, that helpful information. As if you can give lists of the names and contact information of the administrative teams within the church or ministry teams, and any important records, where they are, where they're kept, and make sure that those are up to date as you leave. And then the second column, you know, we are much more open with this transitional time than we were 20 years ago. You know, it was kind of just the curtain went down June, whatever the last day of June is, and then in July 1 it went up, and you had a new pastor. And now there's this transitional time where we encourage. And so as you are leaving, please give permission for your leadership teams to meet with the new pastor. Invite the incoming pastor to one of the last leadership team meetings that you're having together. So, you know, there is some overlap, and they can kind of just pick up with ministry while you're still there, have an introduction to where things are. Meet with give permission for the pastor to meet, incoming pastor to meet with the congregation, have those meet and greets or whatever kinds of welcomes even before that July 1 date. And for that pastor, if there's staff, whether it be paid or volunteer, to meet with them. There might be a special congregational gathering that's happening, some special event, invite the incoming pastor to that. And then of course the pastor to pastor conversation that you can share the information in that first column and more. So that's all helpful as well. A couple of other helpful things. If there are any hanging issues, take care of them before. If there's something difficult that needs done, do it before the incoming pastor comes. Interesting enough, I was actually at an a SPRC meeting. I think it was actually at the introduction, or maybe it was during the profile time. And one of the people looked at me and said, we have an issue with the staff person. Basically, they didn't even ask. It was to the people at the table. We should take care of that now rather than wait till the new pastor comes. And I very much said, yes, you know, you don't, and they got it. They didn't want the new pastor taking the rap for if they let that person go or replace that person or whatever, you know, that doesn't start that new pastor's relationship with the congregation off on a good step. You know, whether it was their responsibility or not, whether the SPRC, you know, did it or not, with the timing, if it happens after the new pastor arrives, there's going to be that feeling that the new pastor caused that to happen. So resolve any hanging issues, make those hard calls before you go out the door. Don't make any major decisions. Don't start anything that you know, you can't really happen or see through as you're going out the door. If there is something that just has to be discussed or a decision made, involve the incoming pastor, the two of you together with your wisdom around the table. And then the very last thing, give the gift of the easy win. If you've been mentoring someone or even see gifts in someone, perhaps to start a new ministry, or they have shared with you they want to start this new ministry, you know, share that with the incoming pastor. Don't feel like you have to do that last thing before you're out the door to get those last strokes or whatever, or, you know, entrust that to the incoming pastor. I like Lovett Weems a lot with his work calls the incoming pastor the successor, and I like that in the fact that, you know, you want the pastor that follows you to be successful, the successor to bring success. You want the congregation to be successful, to be fruitful. And so, you know, these easy wins, you know, really help your pastor gain, the incoming pastor, your successor, to really gain some footing as they first come in. And what a gift that is. So just a few things there. As far as social media goes, just a couple of things to touch base with that. You know, there are all kinds of I guess philosophies about, especially Facebook, you know, do you unfriend everybody, or, you know, from your previous charge or churches as you're going somewhere else, and or how do you you know, draw those lines? And again, it's important to draw the line that you are not pastor, but how can you be friends, and how can you do that in a way that it doesn't impose upon the incoming pastor? I came across a really good article, and I know my thoughts and feelings, you know, as far as limitations, but I came across an article again by, it's by Thomas G. James and Lovett H. Weems, and this is actually available on Portico. There are several things that are available on Portico for you if you look up pastoral transition, and I think this article in particular should be added to our transitions packet in the future. But there are a few things as far as, you know, managing your contacts. There is a full paragraph on there that talks about the advanced settings that are available on Facebook that permits you to create sublists. So you can have different categories for different groups of friends. So you could have a subcategory for the congregation you're leaving. You could have a category for your high school friends, your seminary friends, your pastor friends, however. And so that creates some limited access that could be helpful. So you can take a look at that, and I would advise, you know, the directions are on that sheet to take a look at that. But a couple of things that are also mentioned on this that I think are helpful. Just the very fact of avoid overusing social media during a transition, because you're busy, you have other things that you need to care for during this time, way too much on our plate right now. And so it's just maybe a good time to take a break, just because of your personal well-being and schedule, but also will help with that transition with your congregation as you're leaving and as you're starting. Another thought that I never even thought of that's on here is to not overly depend upon social media, or don't rely on it, period, in order to get to know your new congregation. You know, don't just be friends with somebody on Facebook as you come into your new congregation. And again, if you take that break, that will help with that. But get to know your people face to face and in person. So I do recommend that article for you as well. Moving day. We are, if you're like me, living in the midst of boxes right now. If you're not, you better get started. A couple of things just to remember. There are some forms that are included in that transition packet that you will want to use. You should have already done a walkthrough of the parsonage with your trustee chair and PPRC chair, just to see what kinds of things need done before you go, so that they're aware of those things and can plan for those, because it's always a pretty quick turnaround with move outs and move ins. The other thing is to have a discussion of, you know, what are they going to take care of with cleaning wise, and what's your responsibility? You know, I've been blessed with churches who actually come in and clean after I leave, but that doesn't mean I leave a major mess. You know, I run the sweeper, I've done cleaned the bathrooms and everything, but you know, they might be planning on doing some painting on the walls, therefore I don't have to wash the walls down, or maybe they're hiring a cleaner to come in and to do that. Have that conversation. What's your responsibility? What's your SBRC responsibility? And how is that spelled out for you? Also, if you have pets in your parsonage, is there damage? And if there is, you're responsible for that damage, and talk through that with your SVRC. Your DSs welcome you to settle that without us getting involved, which sometimes happens. So have that conversation. You are financially responsible for any damage. It says that right on that form. So there is the walkthrough prior, before you move. There is also, and there is present in your packet, a walkthrough and parsonage inspection at the time of move. That very day that you move, there is one last walkthrough. And that is an important document, and it needs signed, and it needs people present. Remember, if they're not present, they don't sign. And it is of the utmost importance for your protection and for the church's protection, for everybody's protection, that happen, and that happen accurately. So please, it's not just a document, that another piece of paper that we make you do. There is a purpose for it. So please, make sure that you take care of all of that. And also, there's to be a parsonage notebook or folder with any directions, any quirky things with your parsonage, any appliances, paperwork, and maybe even who to call in the case of, you know, if there's a particular plumber or electrician or whatever. Trustees maybe handle all of that, but if sometimes that's included in the document, or in with that documentation. But I will say that with that parsonage notebook, now I must be hitting my bedtime. I don't remember what I was going to say. So maybe I'm done. That was the last thing I was going to say. Make sure that you have that and can pass that. Oh, the quirky things. Let me come back to the quirky things. This house that I'm in now, there are 2 light switches. One will turn on a light, and the one, what does it do? Well, it does some of the outlets in the room, maybe not all of them. So, you know, if you have an outlet that doesn't work, oh, maybe it's that light switch that's really not a light switch over there on the wall. You know, if there are any quirky things like that that you have discovered, and please, you know, make note of that, or, you know, make sure you communicate that to the person that's following you. Okay, that's all I have. And I am going to see, do you have any questions about any of that? You're all tired too. I see someone like this. Oh,
Yeah.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
No questions, especially when it's, what time is it? Ooh, we finished before 9.
How about that? Yes, yes. Well, we certainly appreciate your time this evening to listen to our presentation on starting well and leaving well, and then also the information that Jason has shared with you. We hope this will be beneficial to you. We do want you to start well. We do want you to leave well. We want you to work together with the church and with your other pastors as you continue to build up the kingdom of God. If we don't have any other questions, Lillian, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but would you close us in a word of prayer tonight?
Of course. Let us pray. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for our time together. And Lord, we thank you that our lives are in your hand, and the steps of righteous men and women are ordered. So Lord, we thank you that you are taking us on a journey for your purpose and for your kingdom. We pray your blessings on every person on this call, as well as their family and their children and the congregations they are serving now and will be leaving, and the congregations that will receive them. Lord, shower them, shower all of us with your love and your grace and your strength. Lord, help us to love your people as you have loved us. Bless us in transition and bless those who are leaving and those who are following us. Lord, all these things we pray in the matchless, all-powerful name of Jesus the Christ. Amen.
Amen.